Hello and welcome to Personable, a podcast focused on speaking to the world's best, enabling you to become the best that you can be. Today, I'm honoured to be joined by Tulio Sasaya. Tulio is a third-year student at Duke University pursuing computer science and a certificate in innovation and entrepreneurship. He has a huge online following with 615,000 followers on Instagram, 687,000 on TikTok, and 42,000 on YouTube. In fact, surprisingly, most of you probably know him having found him online, but I first met Tulio in person through Creator Lab. Creator Lab is this new venture at Duke University, bringing together people interested in the creator space, whether to create content or whether to go into industry, production, or many other areas. And that's how I met Tulio, and I see him more as a friend and as a mentor now, versus rather than just seeing him behind the screen. And so I thought it'd be an amazing idea, and also to personalize the creator you know and love, Tulio, in an hour long podcast. So Tulio, I wanted to get started. If you could describe your journey to getting accepted to Duke University and how you started creating content on social media.
Definitely. I'll answer the first part of your question. What was my journey like getting to Duke University? I think in high school, I didn't really have a clear direction of what college I wanted to do or what career path I wanted to pursue. I think I just surrounded myself with friends who are really high achievers. They would get A pluses on other classes, and I felt like I had to fit into that environment. So I also mimicked them and grinded through my AP courses and studied really hard for my exams. And then when it came time to apply for colleges, I cast a very wide net. So I had my reach schools. My dream school was like Duke University. And after, getting accepted to that, I was really excited. And then I feel like my whole life in high school was focused on getting into a good college. And then when I actually got into that good college, I had no idea what to do. I was like, okay, I'm here. Now what? I guess I'll go and pursue computer science since that seems like the most relevant thing in today's age. And with content creation, it kind of started during, I want to say, my first semester of my senior year in high school. So after I had already applied to all of my colleges, I was really bored, and my brother suggested, "Oh, why don't you just like it'd be really funny if you posted on TikTok and you got a lot of followers." That's actually like not the story at all. That's just what I tell people to feel better about myself. The real story is that I was seeking some form of external validation. I wanted to feel important and I wanted to be valued by the people around me. And that's the place where I started creating content from. And if you scroll down to my first video on TikTok, it's literally like a thirst trap, which is basically like, how do you even describe that? Like lip
Yeah,
syncing
it's
in
like
front of the camera, using a trending sound, showing off your looks. But yeah,
I
that
think
was
it's uh, I think it's funny because I've spoken to you in the past about your journey, and I literally was just reading about your journey online from various online articles. And it's like, yeah, like my brother told me to do this, and then I started making skateboard videos. I was like, oh, where does the thirst trap side of
right,
things come in
right,
here?
exactly.
Uh, is he like shirtless on a skateboard or something? Like, what's the thirst trap? But where like I think that's really interesting that you're very honest and open about that. I think many creators would try and hide, and also wouldn't admit that they needed this form of validation. You end up getting accepted to one of the best universities in the world, like Duke University. You're very smart, very hardworking. Probably getting that validation from, or you might be seen as getting that validation from academic success. So why do you think you needed that validation from random strangers on the internet at that point in time?
Yeah, I feel like I was definitely playing a game of comparison where like I would compare myself to my friend's achievement. And it's like it's a never-ending battle because there's always going to be someone who is like more specialized in the thing that you're pursuing. And even if you do reach the top, it's like your whole identity is formed around that accomplishment and you feel like you need to uphold that. So for me, I was like going down the rabbit hole of constantly trying to prove my worth to others rather than discovering like what I truly wanted to do.
And do you think you got that validation from it? Or was it very like short-lived?
Oh yeah, no, I definitely did get that validation from it initially because my first couple of videos blew up almost immediately. And then I posted like what I like to call like a skating thirst trap. So like I'm skating, there's like a trending music playing, and then like I'm just like lip syncing to it. And that video got like 3 million views on TikTok. And within 3 months, I had like 450,000 followers on TikTok, which was insane. And I honestly felt so overwhelmed when my first video blew up, and I felt really scared because I was like, oh my God, maybe like this is way too much for me. And like scrolling through the comments is nice, like, oh, you look so good, oh this and that. And then you go back to the real world and it's like, wow, it's like that's not like a reflection of reality at all.
For a lot of people, and even myself included, when I used to watch people like Mr. Beast, and I would describe it to my dad as well. And many people would think that social media is easy, you just get behind a camera, you do stupid pranks or, do random things on the internet and you just get views. But it's not as simple as that. But in your journey, you almost present it as this effortless thing in which, you needed validation, you put some videos out on the internet and they instantly blew up. What do you think made you different? Because I bet for you, as the singular person that blew up from that, there's probably 99,000 people that tried to do a similar thing that wouldn't have got the same amount of views initially.
Right. And I honestly think I got really lucky, which like I absolutely hate saying, but definitely like when I look at those videos that I used to make, like I didn't see anyone else making those types of videos too. Like I'm skating on speed skates, I'm like lip syncing to videos, I'm a decently like attractive person. So like all of these things like kind of add up to create a viral video. And like at the time I didn't really know that's what was happening, but as I have more knowledge about what makes good content, I'm able to reflect back and see why that video succeeded.
Okay, so you blow up, all right. So you've been like this new like novel thing. How do you then implement both consistency and longevity into that form of content? Because I can imagine maybe there's a lot of other examples of creators, or not even creators of maybe we'll just call them users, and people that made videos that have done really well. Like I saw a video in a TikTok class. I think it'd be a bit creepy if I didn't say it was in the TikTok class, but I was in the TikTok class and it was like a baby like playing on a bed or something and it was just like, oh, they got like 100 million views, and then the mother did the same thing of like a baby doing a cute thing. It got 50 million, and then she tried to create tons of other forms of content, and it got like no views, whatever whatsoever. But you've seemingly been able to, take that piece of content and then produce similarly consistent forms of it before you transitioned, and continually grow your user base. So, how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, initially it was just creating the same format of video with different sounds over them. And then I eventually experimented with filming with my Insta360 camera, and those are the videos where you can't see the selfie stick, and it's like it's the reason it does so well is because no one else has seen or posted a content similar to that. And then this is something I really struggled with during my first year at Duke because I pursued it more as a hobby and I only posted because of the fact that, oh, I guess it gets views, so I guess I'll keep posting, which isn't really like a strong why at all. And I really struggled with trying to diversify my content from just skating videos because there's only so many skating videos that I could do before I would do something outrageous and potentially like injure myself doing a backflip or something for engagement. And what I found to be at least my key to success and enabling me to diversify my content was just starting to talk in my videos, starting to talk in my skating videos. And the moment I was able to include narration into my videos, I had control over the whole narrative of the story. And I had more control over how, like, a video's performance rather than entirely relying on the spectacle factor of me skating in a nice place.
I think what's different between like Hollywood versus social media content creation is that someone, let's say someone like Chris Hemsworth, goes and plays Thor. It's very obvious to even the viewer that Thor is not actually Chris Hemsworth. And so he's not expected to be the exact same as you see him playing the superhero type character. But your social media presence is literally your name. And you are talking, you're not dressed up in any way. You look the exact same in person to how you do online. But personality wise, the way that social media is created is you're able to chop up exciting parts of your life or certain reactions or certain things you do, or even story tell your life in a way that it seems more exciting. Have you found any difficulty in managing real world relationships with the contrast of how, or at least initially, with the contrast of how people perceive how you are online to how you are in person?
Honestly, not really, just because the person I portray online is so true to myself. I mean, I think I take different aspects of my personality and maybe like exaggerate them a bit for social media. I would say that is the furthest extent of it. But generally in my day-to-day interactions, at least with my like the friends or my close friends, I I don't really see like social media affecting our relationship. And I generally like to set very clear boundaries with my like in-person interactions and try not to have my online presence affect that.
And something I've only really just started to realize, and it might be quite stupid for a listener to hear something like this, is that social media, from my perspective, and actually speaking to more and more creators, isn't it's not just a case of this person films a video, does some cool story, edits it, makes it look cool, and posts it, but it's more a means of expression. Another form of expression could be art or music, but in this case, it's social media, and you just refer to it being your authentic self. How have you utilized social media to become more you? I feel like we're in a unique time where this new thing can make you more you. Could you, explain that a bit further?
Yeah, 100%. Like I view content, or at least in my like case, as a balance between seeing it as a business and seeing it as a form of expression. But to get onto your question, when I first started talking in my videos, I was very to myself. I would use my inside voice. I would be stuttering a lot. I would be like repeating the same lines over and over again. And I took a lot of inspiration initially from a lot of comedy creators, namely Justin Han, Richard Sabiaga. Even though they were comedy creators, and that usually is a more like surface level way to interact with people, they were able to create such an engaging community. And I realized that was because of how their personalities shined through their videos. So I kind of like emulated that at first because I didn't really have a strong sense of self at the time. But just after like talking to the camera for videos for like weeks and then months on end, I was able to like it was really weird. I was able to find like my own voice through just talking in front of a camera and telling stories. And that's where I eventually got to the point where I'm able to just go on camera and be my true authentic self rather than emulate some other personality.
I think there's again, this is not scientific evidence. I'm not STEM, I'm not in the STEM field, but I think they say that the human brain doesn't finish like developing until the age of 28, and both you and I are still long before that. And so, do you think social media has changed who you are for the better or for the worse as you continue to develop into a fully formed brain?
Yeah, I mean, I think within the past year at least, it has definitely like accelerated my like brain growth, what would you call it? Just because I think when you're building a personal brand online that is so heavily reliant on your personality and your ability to tell stories, you just pick up so many like life skills as well, with like being able to like converse with another person. And through developing my sense of self by posting content online, I was able to also learn a lot of things about myself that I would have not like realized other. And I think a large part of that might have been from the fact that I used content creation as a form of expression as well.
I think something that's interesting for, this, I think this applies to any field where someone's just getting started, is this idea of motivation versus discipline and the use of your why. So, for example, someone that's not in shape might be wondering and trying to get that initial motivation and finding their why of starting to go to the gym. I think it's similar with content creation. For a lot of people, it might be just to have a load of followers and to be able to get into nightclubs because they say they've got a million followers, or get brand deals, or this perception that they're able to hang out with and be whoever they want to be and being seen as cool. But what I don't think people understand is that your why and who you are is something that everyone battles with, whether you're Mr. Beast with hundreds of millions of followers or whether you're, you know, Jimmy with zero followers just getting started online. It's a never ending thing. And I think the difference is it's the people that just continue, like that continue making content are the ones that outlast. And you referred to it back there about you're still trying to find like your why. So for Tulio Sasaya, what is your why in making content? What was it like when you started? And what is it now?
Yeah, I mean, when I started, I already explained the story, but it came from a place of wanting that social validation and wanting to feel important. And when I made my transition from pursuing it just as a hobby to maybe a potential career, I had to really question this why and my motivations behind content. And the way I at least was able to navigate that was by looking in the past and why I enjoyed making things initially. So when I was in high school and middle school, I was in Boy Scouts. So we go like on a lot of camping trips. And on those camping trips, I really enjoyed like pulling out my phone or pulling out a GoPro and just recording and documenting the world around me. And I would love to like go back and show my parents the footage and basically relive that experience. So a really strong motivator for me to be creating content is just I feel like intrinsically I just love the creative process of being able to express myself through a medium, and I find that content is the most conducive platform for me to be able to do so. And then I think another motivator for me recently, as at least, has been to help others navigate their 20s because this is something that I've struggled with a lot this past year, learning to grow up, be more independent, and experience life as well. And as a result, I have started posting different kinds of content, both on YouTube and on Reels, to kind of reflect that change.
I think the difference between social media as a career versus a lot of other spaces, like if I got a job at McDonald's tomorrow, I'd start earning, $15 or $18 an hour, depending on the state I'm in. Whereas for social media, there's quite a big sunk cost in terms of time. And it's also not like it's not a linear thing. It's not like, post for this number of days, this number of hours, do X, Y, Z, then you'll start making money. There's no linear career path to success. How do you frame social media in your mind in terms of trying to make it into a career?
Hmm. I think if the only thing you have in mind is chasing views and chasing money, you're you don't have a really strong motivator because if you keep posting content and you're not seeing these things come in, you're going to be very discouraged to keep posting in the future. And I've talked to other creators and about their why, and I've also talked to people who have been doing it full time and if they feel any pressure under it. And the most successful creators that I've talked to, where they don't necessarily feel the pressure, is that they just try to make content as fun for them as possible and to make it so that they genuinely enjoy the creative process of posting online. Because for me, at least, even if I made no money or I received no fame for my content, it is something I would do regardless of anything.
But going to the business side, you have become successful, and I'm amazed that you've got this amazing why, and we've learned why Tulio is amazing, and I know you're amazing. But there is still a business side to be had of it if you want to make this into a career. You have an agency. You've already stated in other online articles that you have made money from content. So putting on your business cap, what is your perspective from that? Like, from let's say I'm, in my 50s, 60s, I don't, I maybe have a Facebook page or something, and I see the occasional thing coming through, some funny video, or in your case, it might be like a skateboarding video. Like, I have no conceptual understanding of how that makes money. Is it done on views? Is it, how does that, how does that all come together?
So is a question like how I make money on social media or how I approach thinking about making money on social media?
It's both.
Okay. I can start with how I make money. I think that answer is a bit easier. I would say 80% of it is through brand deals. So I'm currently signed with an agency, Viral Nation. And basically what they do is they manage my inbounds from brand deals and they also do outbound. So they reach out to brands and they pitch me as a creator. And they bring me an offer, they negotiate the deal. It's a pretty standard industry, like 80-20 split in terms of I take 80% of what they negotiate and I make most of my money through brand deals, through short form content. There's also like ad revenue from YouTube, and sometimes TikTok. I haven't made like the most amount of money from that just because the conversion from views is so low, especially in the kind of broader niche that I'm in. Like if I made finance videos on YouTube and those got like millions of views, I would be like drowning in like money. But that is not the case. So I think as a creator, it's really important to, especially if you're doing it seriously, is to also be able to think about it as a business as well, because at the end of the day, you still need to make money to pay the bills, and always looking for ways to monetize, diversify your income streams, I think is really important as a creator because you can't be solely reliant on brand deals or on your viewership rates because those things are out of your control and they're bound to change. So what I see a lot of more successful creators do is they continue building out their personal brand further and they build products around their audience rather than trying to achieve high viewership rates or brand sponsorships. I mean, like even like you mentioned Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast does this with like his products because it costs so much for a brand to like put an ad in one of his videos just because of the sheer number of views that video is able to reach. So instead of trying to reach out to these brands, he's created his own brand where he's able to plug it into his videos and promote it that way.
Is there I mean, this sounds very literal, but do you have like a 10-to-1 ratio for every 10 posts I put out, I'm going to do one ad? Or, as I've seen some creators where it gets kind of like stupid, where it just looks like, every like one or two posts is an ad, and then they sort of lose a lot of their engagement because their audience is like, well, you're just trying to sort of milk us. Whereas looking at your page, it doesn't seem that obvious at all that you've done too much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think about it too much just because I post pretty consistently now. I would say I post around 2 to 3 times a week, and having an ad sprinkled in there like every month or every like twice a month doesn't really hurt because I'm still providing entertainment value to my audience through my content as well. Now, if I was just posting like ads on my page, like then it would be a problem because then it would almost feel like I'm betraying the audience's trust. I'm just using them for monetary gain.
I think the average age of a VC, a founder that gets backed by a VC, again, please fact check this yourself, is 60 years old. Okay, so that would be you in roughly 40 years' time, and you've built up your social media following in only the past 3 years. You mentioned to me just there, building a product could be a more sustainable way to get income in the future. Where do you see your personal social media business, I'm going to call it business, going in the next 10 or 20 years?
Honestly, I do not have a very clear vision of what it's going to look like in the next 10 to 20 years. I feel like, and this might be something I need to workshop a bit more, is I've been focusing only on what happens within the next 3 months because that is the path I can see most clearly for myself. So in terms of the business aspect for myself, the next step would be creating merch for my followers, more specifically, like tulip or like floral themed merch. That is something my audience and I have an inside joke about, and like that would be the next step for me. And then afterwards, it really depends on how my personal brand continues to grow and what kind of value I offer them that would be able to fit some sort of product that I'd be able to sell in the future.
I think it's called a parasocial relationship, in which you have you, Tulio, and they're sort of getting your side of this friendship, in which they get your personality, your jokes, your story, your life, whereas you've never met and have no idea who any of these people are that are your fans and part of your community in Tulips. How do you think about sort of managing and growing a community that has come out of this inside joke called the Tulips?
I mean, when I first made a video that really started off the joke, I definitely I continued to like milk it in the sense of I would keep posting videos about it. I would post like response videos to comments and everything, and I did that for a couple of months. And then afterwards, I didn't want to keep beating on the same joke over and over again because then it's like, oh, this joke's like really old. So I kept creating the content that I was making before, and it was really nice because I felt like I could create content on almost any subject, and it would work because people would comment, "Oh, Tulip's doing this, or Tulip's doing a skincare, or Tulip's cutting hair." Like I almost became this like celebrity figure where I'm able to do like I don't know, like cooking, and people would still find it interesting because it's Tulip doing it instead of just me.
I want to delve a bit deeper into your from ideation it to actually posting content. Could you take me through the step by step journey from more of a surface level of how you go about coming up with an idea to actually posting a form of content?
Right. So like either I would have like a 15-minute brainstorm session where I just like brain dump like all of my like ideas onto a piece of paper. I would circle the best one and I would kind of try to elaborate on it. That's one way I ideate. Another way is just through going like about my daily life, and if like I'm taking a shower, if like I'm walking outside, or if like I'm talking with friends and suddenly they say something that triggers something in my head, I just like I'm like write it down, write it down, write it down, or else like I'll forget it. And another way is actually through journaling. I try to journal like daily. I think it's really good to kind of, at least for me, I found it to be a really good way to like unwind the thoughts in my head. And occasionally I would be like reading back through like an old journal entry, and I would find an idea or a conversation topic that would spark something in my head. And that would be another avenue for an idea for content. And then after I have the idea, I have this like whole task manager full of like I have at least like 50 ideas in that one task manager. And I would go out and I would like kind of like script it out. And my process for scripting is really weird. Like I would think of like the script in my head, and then I would kind of like almost say it like out loud to myself to make sure that it fits my true voice. Like if you saw me doing this in public, you'd probably think like, what is this guy on? Like he's just like mumbling to himself and he's like laughing to himself too. It's like the most, it's the weirdest. It's really weird. It's really weird. Um, but like for me, that's the process that works, because if I just like type out a script without really thinking about it and I read it, it does not sound like me at all. So for me, the scripting process is like I kind of say it out loud and I kind of go from there. And then once I have the script and everything, I would go out on my skates usually, and then I would film that talking head shot. Or if it requires like more shots, I kind of find that as well. And one thing I'm working on more is, instead of like scripting, I would have like bullet points of like general conversation topics to talk about. Like I would still have like a hook in my head, but from the rest of the video onwards, I would be kind of like improvising it on the spot.
Is there a type of emotion, you see these prank videos and the emotion that most people would get by watching the videos is a laugh. Or, there's people that tell sob story, I don't want to call them sob stories, but sad stories and, makes you feel sad. Is there a particular singular emotion, feeling, or thing that you want a viewer to take away from every one of your videos, or does it sort of change depending on, and how does that feed into your overall online brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very dependent on the video subject as well, but in general, I like to make it feel like that the viewer is conversing with a close friend of theirs about a certain subject, whether that be deep or funny in that case. And that is like when I'm talking in front of a camera, I kind of imagine like I'm talking with like my best friend, or if it's a more emotional video where I'm talking about like past reflections, I would imagine like I'm talking with my father. Um, so that's kind of the way I approach about it.
How do you, very often in these sort of videos, they're cut up every like 5 to 7, even longer, or perhaps a tiny bit shorter. Each time you're talking, you might be like, and so I went to the park and I did blah, 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 and so I blah, 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 and so I blah, blah, blah. Whereas a conversation like we're having right now, it's a lot slower. You don't have to think about what you're saying straight away. What, like, how do you approach having a conversation with your best friend when you're only talking in 5 to 10 second intervals at a time?
That's a really interesting point because, I mean, when I do film those videos, I imagine I am talking with my best friend, but I segment the story in a way that if I'm having a normal conversation with a person and I'm talking in like 5 to 6 second bits, it wouldn't make any sense. But once I cut everything up in post and post it online, then it kind of does make sense. And this is like the part where you kind of have to adhere to the social media algorithm, and the fact that, especially like on short form content, everything is like so fast paced. On YouTube, I found like a lot more joy in being able to express a story to its fullest extent because I'm able to take pauses. Like I don't need to cut up like every single breath in between. So that's just the differences in those social media platforms.
The art of storytelling is, I think, something that has become so important, whether you're raising money as a business to literally like an author or someone writing a TV series or a film. It's something that pretty much all of us are consuming, even on a daily basis these times. But you're making content in 1 minute long intervals. Sure, you have your longer form as well, but in terms of that like 1 minute long interval, is there a formulaic approach you have for the important parts of telling a story in that 1 minute interval?
Yeah, yeah. So like I would like obviously hook, middle, end, and everything, right? Um, but when I'm approaching the way like I script these videos, I want to be like as concise and as to the point as possible without including any side tangents if I feel like they don't add to the story at all. So like I would have a video of me like skating to class, like I'm running late to class, and I share some like personal details about my life, and I would say like, oh, I'm stressed for this midterm, I'm working towards this midterm. And then at the very end of the story, I always like including some form of twist as well. So I arrived to the classroom in this scenario, and me and my professor are the only ones in that classroom because it turns out that I actually arrived way too early, and he asked me to go grab a coffee afterwards. And um, like that's kind of the way that I approach storytelling in short form content. I think that storytelling can look very different for different mediums as well. I think it's all about finding what format of storytelling works best in your medium.
Mr. Beast, someone leaked a new employee guide, which basically he would give like a guidebook that he'd give to every one of his new employees, basically over like giving you the general scope of what goes into a Mr. Beast video. Something like you start 45 days out, you get the idea, work out all the, are you gonna need consultants for this if you're building the world's largest pizza, work out if anyone's done it before, and then go about, finding all those people and blah 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 and all these things. But he also really goes into detail. I think the average length of his videos is 13 minutes, and he divides up his videos from like the hook, the first minute, and then it's like minute 1 to 3, etc. You mentioned there the hook, the beginning, middle, end. Do you go in depth on the bits in your video in which people are dropping off? Like from an analytical standpoint, we see this. I watched this cool video. I'm thinking, oh, that's cool. Like, share, comment, tulip, whatever. But actually, from your perspective, the where people are dropping off and where people are liking, how people are sharing, that's really important information to a creator. So how do you go about analyzing a video in order to get the best out of it, in order to produce the best videos moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, honestly isn't something I think too much about short form content because there aren't a lot of analytics to pull from like a 13-second video. Like you'll probably see like the retention graph looks something like it looks really high for the first 3 seconds and it slowly begins to drop off afterwards. So there really isn't much information I can synthesize off of it. I will say one tactic that I've been using a lot is trying to include like conversation topics within the video. So I would have a video where I'm getting like street interviewed or something like that, and the interviewer would ask me like, "Hey, excuse me, sir, what is like one piece of advice or you would give to your like college or high school self if you were to go back in time?" And like in my head, I would be thinking like, "Oh, but this kid like looks like a college or high school student. Like, why is he even asking that question?" And then when I answer that question, I say something completely like random. I say like, "You know what? Friends are like snowflakes. If you pee on them, they go away." Like something like completely out of pocket, right? And that's what people would comment on a lot, right? And then I would walk away and my shoes are gone for some reason. And also the interview is filmed using like a clothing hanger with a mic on it. It's like there's just like a lot of things to like comment on about the video. And that's like one way I like to approach short form content as well.
I'm laughing because I watched that video literally just before this interview, and I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" So before you even said what happened, I was like, "All right, I got it," and I was like, just like, yeah, it just made the emotional side. It's both confusion but also like joy. I'd say like it's just hilarious. Um, I want to go back to that scheduling point because I think you're a much more evolved creator in this space. And I really love the like gym analogy compared to like a startup because a startup you build it for a number of years, and then if you were to exit it at some point in time, once you've achieved that success, you get a big sale, it's all done and dusted, you've got your money, you can, buy your 5 houses or, whatever there is to do. There is some form of end in sight. Whereas with social media, even with Mr. Beast, he is still the forefront of all of his videos on Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast Gaming, etc., etc., etc. How do you go about dealing with and supporting your mental health whilst also having this, maybe you do, but I'm guessing that 365 days a year, you're not always happy about having to put a video out however many days a week or month you have to. So how do you help protect your mental health whilst also, getting enough content out for your tulips?
Yeah, no, 100%, because it's it's not the best idea to have your entitled like business model be centered around your personal well-being and your ability to talk in front of a camera. I mean, I struggled a lot with this like earlier this year, where like I had an event happen, and my mental state was completely ruined for 2 months. And whenever I showed up on camera, there would be days where I would film a video and I would look back at it and I was like, oh man, I can't post this. Like I look so depressed and sad in this video, and it just like looks like I'm faking it. And for 2 months, I felt like an actor, kind of like in my content, like an actor of myself, which is like a really weird thing to think about. So to kind of like help deal with this moving on in the future, what I found really helpful at least is to create one piece of content for the audience. So like one piece of content that I know is going to perform well, and then one piece of content that is like really true and fulfilling towards myself. Because at the end of the day, like I find joy in creating content because it's a form of self-expression. So I would say like recently I posted another video where I talked about how I needed to have more compassion for myself, and because that is something I have been struggling with. And when I posted that video, I felt very like fulfilled from doing so. And I would say when I was going through that difficult time, during like February of this year, I wasn't creating that kind of content where I was able to express my feelings and my emotions through my content. So that's where I think I lacked as well. And I think as a creator, it's really important, like almost like the most important thing is your mental health, because if your mental health crumbles, you aren't able to show up as yourself on camera, like at all. So another like way I keep myself accountable for it is I've recently started going to therapy to help balance that out.
Thank you for opening up about that. With any industry, there's always figures that one would look up to. In football, someone like Tom Brady; basketball, someone like LeBron James or Michael Jordan. But the social media space can be so diverse in terms of topics, in terms of length of content, even in terms of how long certain creators last for, depending on if they've just got famous or went viral due to a trend. Are there any particular creators in your mind? I mean, I know you mentioned comedy creators before. I've also seen in past written interviews you look up to the likes of Colin and Samir with their breakdown of the creator landscape. Is there any sort of, are there any particular people you look up to that are constantly changing the game and are people that you like to learn from to continually grow and improve on your platform?
Hmm. That's a great question. Honestly, like at the moment, not really. I think when I first started, I looked a lot up to like big YouTube vloggers like Elliot Choi. He used to post like a lot of college vlogs, and that was like a motivator behind starting my YouTube channel as well, because a lot of those videos were college vlogs. And then now I feel like I take sources of inspiration from like so many different creators, like not just one. One example would be, oh man, what was her name? Man, I lost her name. But she creates like these very like cinematic videos, and her video format would be like she had a series on like things I'm unlearning or something like that. And I took that as a form of inspiration for my more reflective videos. And I also enjoy having conversations with other creators and learning about the way they approach their content and seeing what I can learn from them. So like at the moment, no big sources of like inspiration or people I look up to. But maybe that is something I might need to look into for the future.
Is it Mylene May?
Yeah, it is Mylene. Yeah, yeah.
Look at that. That was my research team back there. Just managed to find that one. I got a little call in there, who were able to help me out. I've I try not to, surprisingly, even though I'm trying to I'm making content through my podcast, publishing clips and trying to learn this whole world of short form content. I'm I actually don't consume that much content myself, because I can see there can be many negatives in my own life it can make me feel pretty upset on a day, or feeling I'm getting these short flicks of dopamine and stopping me from wanting to actually move and do things in real life. But I've noticed with the US election, it's November 2nd, the US election's coming up in a few days, that both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are doing shitloads of things on social media. They're all going on podcasts, and lots of creators are making content, using trends and using memes and doing dances or things with both presidential candidates. And it's just this complete like whirlwind from, I think, many of us seeing social media as these things, as these young, cool people are sort of using just to have fun and get followers, and it's not really a business, but it's kind of fun, to this sort of like these politicized arms that are driving Gen Z, and I'm sure millennials and the older generations, to go out and vote. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on this general landscape of this sort of politicization, I'm going to call it, of social media, and what you think that means for the future.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I mean, you mentioned how like no one would really take social media seriously. I mean, I didn't really take social media seriously like either like 5 or 10 years ago. If you told me 5 or 10 years ago I would be doing the things I am doing now, I would call myself like crazy for doing that. But in reality, social media has so much power. It's how people like communicate and it's how people get their information nowadays. Like you have kids online that like are not getting their news information from like Fox News or like one of these more accredited like news stations. Are getting it from TikTok, from like their favorite like TikTok news publisher. And I think what these candidates are realizing is that to reach like the Gen Z specifically, they need to like lean into the social media in order to reach the audience in order to resonate with them. Like I was like on YouTube one day and I just saw like the craziest thumbnail of my life. It was like Trump sitting next to like a couple of like Twitch streamers, and I was like, what is going on? Or like, Kamala would be posting like these like girl boss like kind of memes and like trends to like kind of relate to that Gen Z audience and be like, yeah, I'm cool like you guys too. Like it's a lot of relating or trying to relate to Gen Z that these political candidates are looking to do.
But from my perspective, like, it's cool to see, um, you know, both Kamala and Donald Trump try and relate in this way. But I think for sort of, I don't want to be a spokesperson for our generation as a whole, but I think social media always seemed as this sort of thing that we had to ourselves. Like, we'd see a cool trend and it's like just us that have this trend and can experience it and we can talk about it with our friends. But now when it's like the parents and grandparents and older generations, they're sort of forcing what feels like they're forcing trends down our throats, or forcing us to act a certain way. It just doesn't really sit that well with me, particularly when you know, it's not a surface level thing. It's not a surface level, oh, this person's doing a dance. It's no, this person's doing a dance to make you like them, to make you vote on policy that's going to impact your whole country. Just seems pretty crazy to me.
Yeah. I think maybe the difference is that like we understand the why behind they're doing it. And I think once you become like more literate in terms of like why people do the things they do, especially like on social media, why am I feeling a certain way about this piece of content? And you're really able to break it down, you can kind of uncover their true intentions with everything. And at least like I think that a lot of people aren't able to see through that.
I have a younger sister, and she was speaking to some of her friends the other day, and they're all of them are on like TikTok. Even like, there's this fallacy that there's parental controls. If kids are on TikTok, the stuff they'll be seeing, there's no real way to stop them from seeing it. I'm not talking about them seeing like terrorist videos, but more so in terms of like politicized views and information they're taking to their minds. And I think I remember talking to my dad about this. Like, they would just say, "Oh, I love Donald Trump, Kamala's an idiot," or "I love Kamala, Donald Trump's a racist." And these are like 10-year-old kids, and I'm like, why is that? And then, oh, I just don't like them. And it's just crazy to me how these young, impressionable minds are being influenced by these 45-second long, minute long videos of people just being able to post whatever they want online with no fact checking or repercussions or third party to be able to say to these young kids, hey, actually, Jimothy, look here, Jimothy, like, you know, maybe that is true, but here's another opinion, here's another way of looking at things. Whereas they're just getting these extreme views thrown into their young minds over time. I think that was why I was so curious, like, because I feel like from my perspective, this is the first real big election I've seen like a shit ton of like online social media from both presidential candidates. And if the kids that can't vote that are 10 years old are seeing these views now, how bad is it going to be in 10 or 20 years' time?
Yeah, I mean it's quite scary, and I honestly think that instead of like restricting like social media access to these kids, we should have an alternative approach where we like educate them on how to navigate social media in a healthy manner, and also question everything you see online as well. Like why, like again to my point of like why am I feeling this way? Why do I think this way about a certain person? What kind of strategies is this video using on me to think a certain way? And I think once you're able to get a really good understanding of that, you'll have so much control over what you see online and what you choose to feel or not feel about it.
We've talked a little bit about, I mean, I was pretty passionate about that one topic about the politicization of that social media landscape, but sort of taking a more of an outward lens on things, particularly since 2020, we've seen the rise of TikTok. Before that, Facebook was pretty big, Snapchat's still pretty big within the youth. How do you don't have to name or think of a specific platform, but how do you see this social media landscape evolving over the longer term? Do you think we're going to continually see new platforms coming up? Do you think the platforms we already have will just continue to evolve and like Instagram, made reels? Do you think there'll just be more things like that, or what do you see as how the landscape's going to evolve over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, TikTok, like specifically, like we've seen it go from like just dancing videos to they started like launching like the creator like monetization programs, and now they have like TikTok Shop. Like I swear, like every other video I see on TikTok is like a TikTok Shop ad, and it's really interesting the way that evolved. And then Instagram really took like they wanted to compete with TikTok on short form content, so they introduced Reels Play, where they would offer like money to creators, and this was like in like 2021 or 2022 to like really compete against them. And now like a lot of people are moving to Instagram in terms of short form content because it's such a more conducive platform to building community. I mean, your videos are showing up on their homepage. You have stories, there's a broadcast channel, and you have the added benefit of people are on Instagram to connect with their friends. And if you're able to kind of like emulate that through like your platform on Instagram, then like all the better. And then on YouTube, it's a really weird like shift of where we're seeing these highly produced videos from like you mentioned like Mr. Beast to the point where like YouTube is like almost out competing like Netflix. I don't know the like exact stats on that, but that's like what I've heard in like previous like podcasts and interviews about the creator space. And especially like I feel like Twitch and like streaming has like done like huge leaps like in the past couple of years as well.
What impact do you think you've had on social media so far, and what impact do you want to have moving forward?
Hmm. I think so far I like to think that I have a somewhat positive impact. I like it's weird because I don't like I think that you shouldn't be on social media because I mean at least me like I have like two app blockers on social media. I try not to consume a lot of content, and I would rather exist in like reality and stay grounded with my friends and my real world interactions. But if I can at least be a source of positivity in that space, then for me that's all that really matters. And like moving forward, I hope I can really delve into what I'm more passionate about, which is helping people like navigate their 20s and sharing my life lessons in hopes that I resonate with someone else. And I hope to be able to pursue that more both on YouTube and through short form content.
What advice do you have for aspiring creators?
Aspiring creators, be really sure of the reason why you're posting content. Make sure that it comes like intrinsically and that you're not seeking some form of like external validation, because even if you do find success through that format, it's a never ending uphill battle of always trying to stay relevant and always trying to prove yourself. And two others is be really consistent, especially when you're first starting out and you have no experience in the platform that you're approaching, because like you're gonna need like 40 to 50 to even like 60 videos for you to get a good understanding of what good content looks like for you. And the next would be to experiment as much as possible. Even if like a creator like me, like I'm still like experimenting constantly like with my videos, because even though I may have like a video format that works really well like this month, like 3 months or 4 months down the line, it may no longer be as effective. And by that point, I would have needed like already like some other content format to be able to continue to achieve success in that space. So I think as a creator, you always want to be looking for ways to be able to pivot in your content, because yeah, trends come and go and it's like a really brutal space.
Do you see yourself building a team?
Building a team, that is something I need to do more, because I feel like my one biggest problem right now is I feel like I do not have enough time for all the projects I want to accomplish. And I'm realizing that I need to sort of like outsource more talent to be able to fill in the gaps, which I don't really want to do. So like my like talent like management has been great for that, because I don't have to really think about brand deals. I just have to like say yes or no to them. I create the video for them, they send me the creative brief, and all is well. So like the next step for me would be to look into hiring some form of like YouTube video editor to cut down on the time that it takes to do that. And like if I'm working on merch as well, ideally like I would have some sort of business partner for that to like help keep me accountable while like managing all these different facets of my life.
If I could give you unlimited money and resources, what sort of videos would you make and what sort of people would you hire?
Hmm. I think I would continue making literally like the same videos I'm making now, just because they're performing well. I don't really see the need to increase my production quality. I just need to buy myself more time so I'm able to embark on more projects. So like a project I would really want to embark on more would be to create merch for my followers, right? So having a team would help free up time for me to be able to embark on this project.
Sort of like a deeper question, but are you happy and do you feel like you're on the right path?
I think I am happy. Um, I think most of my days I try to stay really present, um, and try and be my truest self whenever I'm out there. Obviously, like there's difficult days and everything, but because I'm able to express myself so freely in social media, like I'm so grateful to be able to have a platform to even do that as well. And as like to your other question, rather like if I am on the right path, I like to think that I am, because it feels really true and aligned to who I am. Like I can never imagine myself giving up content creation. For me, this space is like an intersection of what I'm really passionate about, what I'm really good at, and what I can make a business or like money out of too. So for me, it's a really good intersection of those three things.
How do you stay grounded?
How do I stay grounded? Well, I think of like my social media as like almost a job at this point. So like I don't really think about like the fame and that kind of like aspect that comes with it. What really helps is like talking with my like brother, especially like initially, because I think during the initial phases of creating content, I was getting in my head a bit, especially because it came from a place of wanting external validation. And he just keeps me very grounded because he knows exactly the kind of person I am, knows me like better than almost anyone. So that's one way I stay grounded. And because like I don't define my self-worth as well through like how well like a video is doing. I think that's another way I stay grounded. And also like I've met so many like other creators as well. And my experiences with them have been like mostly good. And once you meet them, you realize they're just like we're all just people, and that just like happens to be the thing that they're really passionate about. And the fame and everything is kind of like a byproduct of doing what we love.
How do you want to be remembered after your life?
Ooh, it's a really deep question. I haven't really had the time to think about this one. I think maybe just as a good person, someone who has helped others. Yeah, this is something I've never really thought about that much.
And what's next for you? You mentioned you're on 3 month intervals at the moment. What's next over the next 3 months and beyond?
Over the next 3 months, I want to experiment more with different types of content on short form. I also want to look into I'm like hiring an editor for YouTube and expanding content on that as well, and also starting to work on merch for my followers.
And my final question, and I ask this to every guest on my podcast, is what is one thing that you would want a listener to take away from this episode?
Hmm. Find what is truly aligned to you and don't go out there chasing someone else's dreams, but rather, I think the sooner that you're able to align with yourself and your own goals and chase those instead, the more satisfied you'll be in life.
Thank you very much. I think it's been fascinating to be able to meet you here at Duke and learn from you, and you've given me some really good food for thought and advice moving forward. But I'm really happy to have been able to share a little bit about who you are and your journey on this podcast. I think it's amazing to, be bored and then suddenly become this phenomenon online, generating, hundreds of thousands of followers just because you felt like it one day, and then not only being able to do that, but then transition it into this consistent thing, but also this thing that has longevity and has long legs over time. And that's something I'm constantly battling with and trying to evolve in my own life with regards to my own podcast, but pretty much everyone is with regard to their home life, their work life, even things like going to the gym. Consistency and longevity are two of the most important metrics. And I think you're not only doing that, but you're smashing it. And this constant need for experimentation is how that even you have the eagerness and the excitableness and motivation of a small creator to continue to be better. I think is truly amazing. As I mentioned, it's only been 3 years since you started making content, so I'm really excited to see where you go in the next 3 months, in the next year, and even the next 3 years, to see where you could go. But I'm sure that if you just keep at it, great things will continue to happen. So thank you so much for your time, Tulio.
Awesome, man. Love this conversation.